presentation will be also posted on the People's Gas website. We do have a few more people that are continually joining, so I will give it maybe one more minute before we push on, because I know I said 4:10. And we'll give it one more minute before we move into opening or to the agenda. Okay. Next, we'll go over the agenda, what to expect for today. So we'll start with some opening comments and introductions of our panelists. We will then go into the PIPE retirement program scope and key objectives. We'll talk about a walk down of the PRP way, the project life cycle. We will also talk about the PIPE retirement program governance and delivery model, the PIPE retirement program ramp-up plan and stakeholder engagement. And then we will also have questions, wrap up, and closing comments. Again, just a reminder, if you have any questions throughout, please make sure to put them in the chat and we will be monitoring that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our president, Maria Bocanegra, the president of People's Gas and North Shore Gas, to welcome us.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much. Well, good evening, everybody. On behalf of People's Gas and WEC Energy Group, thank you for being here virtually with us. Like Polly said, my name is Maria Bocanegra. I'm the president of People's Gas and North Shore Gas. It really is an honor and a privilege to see a lot of you here joining us virtually. I know it's a Monday night. We're getting there. But I appreciate you joining us for our second inaugural biannual forum on the PIPE retirement, or the PRP. This forum really represents a new chapter for us here at People's Gas, one that's really grounded in collaboration, greater communication, and our shared responsibility to really deliver safe and reliable energy to the people of Chicago. So today we're coming together for one common goal, and that's to strengthen the foundation of this very important program by continuing to listen, learn, and partner, not just with one another, but with our regulator, with labor, and of course with the communities that we serve. At the heart of the PRP are three guiding values that will shape everything that we do. First and foremost is safety. Every decision that we make about scope, schedule, or spend begins with safety. That means prioritizing projects that most reduce risk for our customers, our employees, and our neighbors. Safety isn't just a metric for us, it really is a mindset, and it drives how we plan, how we invest, and how we deliver. Second, program discipline. As with all of our work, we are committed to managing this as a world-class capital program with disciplined planning, clear controls, and clear reporting. This means holding ourselves accountable, not just for what we build, but how we manage the dollars entrusted to us. We are committed to responsibly ensuring that every investment makes the system stronger, safer, and more reliable for the long term. Third, but certainly not least, is community and partnership. We are really proud that this work supports local jobs, advances opportunities for diverse suppliers, and is performed by skilled labor that reflects the strength and skill of our city. Our longstanding labor partnerships remains really at the heart of this program. Their expertise, their dedication, and their commitment to excellence is really essential to everything that we do here. We're also focused on minimizing disruption in our neighborhoods through careful coordination, enhanced communications, and close collaborations with our city partners and our customers. Chicago streets are shared spaces, and we take that responsibility pretty seriously. And this program is not just about replacing aging infrastructure. It's really about preparing what also comes next. Through the PRP, we're setting up Chicago for the next generation of clean, resilient energy, one that can safely accommodate technologies like RNG and hydrogen blending. These advancements will play a critical and important role in reducing our emissions, improving efficiency, and really ensuring that the system that's serving Chicago remains both reliable and adaptable for decades to come. I want to take a moment to thank the Illinois Commerce Commission for its guidance and in direction in shaping the future of this program. We've listened carefully and continuously to your feedback. It has directly influenced how we structured the program, how we prioritize our work, and how we measure our success. The roadmap you'll hear today is about truly a reflection of that dialogue and our commitment to doing better. This forum is part of that promise to keep the conversation going, and we know that engaging is a process that isn't just a one-time event. This is going to be an ongoing process that requires continued commitment and more communication and more listening. You'll hear from our team today on many of the enhancements already implemented and those still in progress. But more importantly, we want to hear from you. Your feedback, your perspectives, and your experiences will continue to shape this program as it evolves. So what's ahead? This forum is designed not just to update, but to connect, to build the kind of trust and shared understanding that helps us move forward together. We're proud of the progress that we've made, but we also know that there's a lot more work to do. And the only way to get there is through open, honest, and ongoing collaboration. So again, thank you to our partners in labor, our regulators, our contractors, community representatives, stakeholders here with us, all of you in this room for being a part of that effort. This is how we will build a stronger People's Gas. This is how we will build a safer Chicago. And this is how we lay the foundation for a cleaner, more resilient energy future, 1 mile, 1 project, and 1 neighborhood at a time. Thank you, and I look forward to the conversation this evening, and I will turn it back over to Polly.
Thank you, Maria. So now we will introduce our panelists. Again, I'm Polly Eldringhoff, Vice President of Operational Performance and the PRP Program Executive, and I also will serve as your moderator tonight. But with us, I have a group of seasoned professionals and several of these folks who serve as members of the newly formed PRP Program Management Office that we have internally here at People's Gas. So starting at the top, Annie Barrel Akowama, City and Customer Coordination Manager, Daniel Bly, our Vice President of Supplier Diversity, Eric Stahl, our PRP Development and Planning Manager, Eric Wagner, our PRP Strategic Planning Lead, Jerry Dixon, PRP Program Manager, John Zarnicki, our Director of Engineering, Peggy Salvatore, the Director of Work Management and Project Controls, and Tom Aritas, our Vice President of Local Affairs and Community Relations. So we will go ahead and jump in. This is going to be a high-level review of the scope, key objectives, and introduction to the PRP way. This depiction is really meant to show you the where all of the program pipe is across the city of Chicago. So as you can see here, PRP's mission is clear, and it was driven by the direction from the ICC order to retire 1,020 miles of cast and ductile iron gas mains that are less than 36 inches in diameter, and to do this by January 1st, 2035. When you look at how the pipes are distributed across our city, you can see the cast and ductile iron, or the PRP scope, is in red. So that is the pipe we still need to remove or replace from or retire from the system. The green is all updated and modern facilities, so that is not within the scope. And then the yellow is intermingled pipe that may be plastic or steel, so it's good facilities, but it's at a lower pressure. Or it could be that it is over 36 inches. And so those are not part of the scope of PRP. And then as we look at, a lot of times people ask us, what is the difference, of SMP and PRP? Are these the same programs, but you just changed the acronym? But we listened to the commission and we knew that this required us to think differently. And so here we really looked at PRP. It's not SMP. It's really a simpler, more straightforward effort. And again, requiring us to think about things a little bit differently. For example, SMP was the replacement of all cast and ductile iron, regardless of diameter or the driver or need for the work. But PRP is retirement of the cast and ductile iron less than 36 inches only. And it does not include all the different drivers or needs, meaning it does not include emergency, public improvement, and system improvement. While we will take credit for those retirement miles, they are not going to be planned or managed in the PRP program. They will be managed and planned outside of PRP. Also, one of our new ways of thinking is the implementation of the JANA probabilistic risk model. This is something that we have worked on for several years and now have been able to implement it. And we will be using this to risk rank our assets, our gas assets, and help inform how we risk rank our projects. Also, we have implemented a system-based assets approach, and you'll hear more about that later from our engineering group, but really how we look at this system for how we go after how we're doing the work in the projects. It's really going to be more system-based on the assets versus geographical. The SMP assumed installation of medium pressure, double decking, and new gas service lines. But PRP, we're doing an alternative analysis that looks to make sure and does an analysis. Should this be low pressure or medium pressure? Should this be single or double decked? Should this be a reconnect or an install of a new gas service line? Also, we won't be moving meters outside. They'll remain inside for now. And so when we do install medium pressure, that means we will add a regulator outside the customer's homes to take that pressure down to the appropriate level to go in to be able to connect to the inside meter, which all operate at a low pressure. And then SMP had about 1,450 miles of main left to retire. That included about 400 miles of that intermingled low pressure plastic or steel that I talked about earlier, that yellow, or it also included some higher diameter pipe. So when you look at the more straightforward PRP, it really is focused on about 1,020 miles of main left to retire. When we think about how we're going to do this, we started basically relooking at how are we going to manage these projects? How are we going to manage the entire program? And we created a new project life cycle, as you can see here. And we will be taking most of the time in today's session to go through each of these boxes in more detail. But when we look at it, this really establishes the foundation for how we will navigate at scale and the pace required, the prioritization, the development, and delivery of the program mission. The remainder of the discussion today, as I said, will progress along the path laid out here and really go a little bit deeper into each of these boxes. But at a very high level, you can see box A, or the first box, is really about prioritization. So identifying the PRP scope and the estimate cost. This is going to be a class 5, rough order of magnitude, and spend and schedule. We will also craft and update the comprehensive program plan, which is an annual plan that we look at every year. This will also be where we control and adjust the PRP baseline, the scope, cost, schedule, and spend. And from here, you can see there's a stage gate of go to design. This is where we will release projects into the actual development stage, which is that box B. Under development, that class 5 estimate will get better. It'll have more information so we can get closer to a class 4 estimate and start the initial plan, which includes identifying the risks and opportunities for proposed projects. And we will work through to be able to move from development into engineering and start designing and engineering the projects. So this will enable proper information for better permitting and supply. This will also move it to a class 3 estimate and lock in performance baseline. And it will also include updates to risks and opportunities. And there between C and D, you will see there's another stage gate where we will say yes or no, it's ready to go to obtaining approvals for OUC, which is the Office of Underground Coordination and Permitting from CDOT. Once we move into D, once we move past that stage gate, we will move into obtaining the approvals and supply. So we will submit and obtain OUC approvals, which takes it takes a little bit of time. So I know the team will dive into that a little bit deeper. And then we also will need to source materials and make sure that we've got the supply agreements in place to support the work. And then we will get ready for the contractor to start preparing for the actual installation, marking, installing, retiring, and restoring of the project. So once we move into the next box, which is E, obtaining permits and engaging customers, this is where we will actually start sending letters. We will start communicating with alder people, the community at large, to let them know we're coming, and we will actually submit for CDOT and IDOT permits as appropriate. Another stage gate there, once we get those permits and we're good to go, we will start to move into the actual execution of the work, which is the construction. We'll start marking, installing, retiring, and restoring, and all of that will lead to retirement after box G there. So we will prepare the final as-built and verify the closeout and be able to go into retirement. There are two also progress lines or cycle lines that really run the gamut of the life cycle on the top and the bottom. H is really this monitor, control, and report, which is something we've been really working on the past few months of not only putting together this new project lifecycle, but making sure that we've got a way to monitor and report on every stage throughout this life cycle. And then you can see at the bottom, improve and learn. So this is going to be where we get a continual feedback loop where everything we learn from any of these stage gates or within each of these boxes or each of these stages of the life cycle, it will trigger issues and we will create resolution documentation, and this will all feed back into the insights and be fed back into the lessons learned and the prioritization schema and model at the front of the life cycle. So this really does tend to create a continuous flow of information. And as we move into, I know I gave a high-level overview of everything, but now I'm going to ask Eric Stahl to take the lead and talk to us in more detail about prioritization. Eric?
All right, thanks, Polly. Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Stahl. I'm the Manager of Development and Planning for PRP. I'm excited and looking forward to being such an integral part of the success of the Pipe Retirement Program. You'll be hearing a lot from me this afternoon as I'll be talking to you really about the first half of the project lifecycle that Polly just described at a high level there. So PRP will be pivoting away from the geographical area approach that was used in our legacy program. And we will now be utilizing a systems-based approach to identify, calculate the risk via the JANA probabilistic model, which I will be going into more depth in a couple of slides from now. And ultimately, we'll be utilizing the PRP to prioritize the retirements of cast iron and ductile iron, less than 36-inch pipe within our current distribution system. So let's get into a little bit more detail on the systems-based approach. This is really an approach in which we'll be using our hydraulic modeling software, Synergy, to identify system flow capacities at critical points within our system. These critical points are medium pressure to low pressure district regulators that are prevalent throughout our current distribution system. And really, these are locations where our current medium pressure system is regulated down to feed our current low pressure system. And there are about 270 of these district regulators throughout our current system. So there's a significant amount of them currently in our system. The analysis that was performed at each of these critical points is what is called a forward trace. And the forward trace analysis calculates the percent of gas that flows through a pipe from each of these district regulators. And it really allows us to determine the extent that each of these regulators feeds into the system. And you can see an example of this analysis in the image on the slide to the right. There are 3 images. Image 1 shows kind of a depiction of our system, and those little white dots or circles, those are actual district regulators. So again, there are roughly 270 of those throughout our system. Image 2 shows the actual forward trace analysis for one of these locations. So the light blue color pipes that you see there, those represent the segments of pipe in which a majority of the gas that is flowing through them is coming from that district regulator. And then image 3 is where we place a polygon around those segments, those blue segments, to associate those pieces of pipe to that particular district regulator. And then we have 270 of these polygons that represent each of those district regulators, and we call these our subsystems. So these are the subsystems throughout, 270 of them, that are throughout our overall distribution system. And this approach takes into account and balances system needs and focuses on the safety and reliability of both the currents and the proposed natural gas systems. So now that we've analyzed our current system to identify the subsystems, we then take these subsystems, all 270 of them, and group them together into what we call piping systems. So on the next slide, you'll see these piping systems depicted. And these groupings of subsystems, we group these subsystems to create these piping systems. And those are based on system requirements that minimize the risk of both over and under pressurization and minimizes the dependencies between the various piping systems. So this approach is vastly different from our legacy program approach, which utilized arbitrary geographical boundaries, which oftentimes resulted in more cross-area dependencies. So the piping systems that are created by grouping the subsystems together are what you see in the image on the screen. And each of those colors or each of those polygons represents a single piping system that are, again, made up of those subsystems that we created through that forward trace analysis of those district regulators, about 270 of them. So in this image that you're looking at, the letters don't necessarily mean rank. Those are just ways to identify the boundaries or designations. And again, don't necessarily represent the rank order, the risk rank order of those piping systems. But for example, you can see piping system A, which is kind of in the middle there, kind of a brownish color. That's kind of isolated. It has little to no dependency on the surrounding system, as its subsystems have been grouped in a way to maximize its independence from the surrounding piping systems. So again, this is a pretty significant change from the upfront analysis standpoint from what we've seen historically in our legacy risk models. So now that we've identified these piping systems, what do we do with those? Well, this is where JANA comes into play. So once the piping systems have been identified, we will then calculate the mitigated risk per foot score of each of these piping systems utilizing the JANA probabilistic model. So I'm now going to dive a little bit into more detail on how the JANA model works, how the mitigated risk per foot score is calculated, and how it is applied to these piping systems. So in the simplest of terms, and you can see this equation at the top of the slide, mitigated risk is the overall risk minus the outcome risk. And the overall risk is the current state or the current state total risk. And really what that means in our scenario here is how much risk is associated to our current cast iron and ductile iron less than 36-inch facilities that we have in our system right now. So what does that current risk state look like right now? The outcome risk is the remaining risk left in our system once that cast iron and ductile iron less than 36-inch facilities are replaced. So if we replace those, what does the risk of our system look like at that point? And the mitigated risk is simply the risk reduction of PGL's distribution system when the existing cast iron and ductile iron and less than 36-inch pipe were replaced via the PRP. So we calculate the mitigated risk of each asset in our current system and then aggregate all the cast and ductile iron facilities scores within that piping system to obtain the piping system risk score. So again, we are calculating the risk for all the assets within our system, and then we take out a piping system and we aggregate the specific risk scores for those cast and ductile iron less than 36-inch facilities. We add those up and we obtain a mitigated risk score for that piping system. And this, I emphasize that because this is another key difference from our legacy risk program, as the previous version did not aggregate individual asset scores, but rather calculated the score of the geographical area as a whole. So we then normalize the mitigated risk score of each piping system by calculating it by foot of the piping system. So mitigated risk per foot. And really what this does by normalizing it is this reduces the chances of a piping system having a higher rank or a higher risk score because it is simply a larger area. By normalizing this score, it measures the true mitigated risk of that piping system. We then rank these piping systems in order based on their mitigated risk per foot score. Ideally, we would progress from the highest score to the lowest score. However, there are other factors that must be taken into account, such as the hydraulic feasibility. But however, in the systems-based approach, this is a reduced factor as there are less cross-piping system dependencies, as I've kind of talked about and mentioned previously and explained. Other factors we do have to take into account are schedule, cost, constructability, and city and third-party coordination. All those other factors can and do impact the order in which these piping systems will be addressed. So moving on into development engineering. The development team is really the ones executing the steps I just went through. So they are creating the conceptual designs of a piping system based on the analysis they performed. This team really plays a critical role to the overall process as they support the transition of concepts into those fully developed constructible projects. And this new process really shows the commitment to the front-end engineering and design, alternative analysis, and initial estimating of scope, schedule, and cost throughout the project lifecycle. Moving on, we'll get a little bit more into detail about the NPA, so non-pipeline alternatives and alternative analysis. So when planning to retire cast iron and ductile iron less than 36-inch pipe within a piping system, potential non-pipeline alternatives, or NPAs, will be analyzed in the upfront development and engineering stages. And at this point, we are currently in the middle of our NPA workshops. An RFP was sent out, and we are engaging vendors to better define what an NPA is and the details on how it is to be incorporated into our analysis. And if it is determined that NPAs are not feasible or benefits are outweighed by costs, then various alternative analysis for the replacement of retirement of cast iron and ductile iron less than 36-inch main will be performed. And these alternative analyses include low pressure to low pressure replacement, low pressure to medium pressure replacement, single decked versus double decked, and the installation of new services versus reconnecting to existing services. So with that, I will hand it over to Eric Wagner.
Thank you. Good evening. This is Eric Wagner, the Strategic Planning Lead for PRP. I'll be talking to you a little bit about estimates, wrapping up the development section, and then we'll be moving on into engineering. So project estimating. Estimating is occurring throughout all of these early life cycle stages in a project, from conception all the way through to picking up a shovel and performing execution. As we progress with the program, we're adopting standards and nomenclature from the Association of Advancement of Cost Engineering. That's AACI there. What do we mean by this? Well, we're talking about, say, the taxonomy of estimate classifications, as you can see from the life cycle, when they occur throughout the course of a project. So we'll start with the Class 5 estimate. So this is the earliest, happening around conception there. And so by nature, it has the least amount of maturity, the least amount of detail. You look to our life cycle schematic to the bottom, you'll see it corresponds to this first stage gate review, which we'll see a little bit more later on. But at this stage gate, we're determined to move forward with design. And as you move forward with design, you're going to increase the level of detail. So then we would move on to that Class 3 estimate. So you have a much more robust design, much more detail, much more maturity, tighter bands of accuracy. And what this corresponds to with this stage gate is in the city of Chicago, when we would be submitting to the Office of Underground Coordination. And if you're outside of the city of Chicago, that's not unlike submitting to a municipal building or engineering or public works department. So with that, you might have some review and comment, you might have some additional development and design. And so lastly, that would take us through that process to the final design. So now your most robust amount of detail, greatest level of maturity, tightest bands of accuracy. And this corresponds to the class 1 or class 2 estimate. And this is the last stop of the estimates before we go into actual execution. So that is a summary of the mechanics and the definitions of the estimates, which is a very important piece of the overall planning and analysis of any given project and program at whole. So we'll talk a little bit more about our long-term planning here. So the robust planning, long before anyone sees any activity out there on site in the real world, is crucial in taking these projects from those early life cycle stages of concept all the way through to a detailed project schedules, guiding the overall delivery and schedules of the program at large. There's a great deal of care that goes into defining these work breakdown structures, the activities, the milestones, and modeling them clearly and accurately in each project schedule. And that's to drive the efficient execution and the efficient alignment of the various teams that need to coordinate together for success in these projects. The long-range plan and the detailed project plans and documents of any individual project all align with these PRP priorities, and they support the consistent individual project preparation and delivery, guiding the success of the program at large. So that life cycle schematic we've looked at, that takes us through to the end of develop, takes us into engineering. So for project engineering, I'll turn it back over to Eric Stahl.
All right, thanks, Eric. So now I'll talk about the project engineering stage of the project lifecycle. So the project engineering team takes the conceptual designs of the piping systems that I previously mentioned that the development team creates and turns them into design plan sets that will be unitized for construction in the field. So this team will break down each piping system block by block to create projects and determine the sequencing that is required to retire the cast iron and ductile iron less than 36-inch pipe in a safe, reliable, and cost-effective manner. So this is where the creation, progression, and refinement of a plan set occurs in which a robust and established quality program is utilized. And we start with the preliminary design. And this is the step in which the specific project boundaries are determined, along with the size of pipe required to meet system needs. So factors such as temperature dependency, specific tie-ins to assure gas flow and capacity requirements are met are analyzed during this time. The design review stage is where the base map is created. So we utilize the Chicago Department of Transportation, or CDOT's information retrieval process to obtain third-party as-builts, and then we go out and walk the proposed line of lay with our field personnel to identify any obstructions that can be seen from the surface and to ensure it's constructible. Profile, restoration, and maintenance of traffic sheets are added to the plan set in the peer review and final review stages, along with plan set review by our various subject matter experts. These plan sets are then stamped by a professional engineer and submitted to the Office of Underground Coordination for review and approval, which I will get into next. All right, so obtaining OUC approval. So the Office of Underground Coordination, Existing Facility Protection, is a structured process owned by CDOT to ensure the safety of the vast amount of existing and proposed utilities beneath the streets, sidewalks, and parkways of the city of Chicago. So now we'll go through the OUC review process at a high level by following the flow chart you see on your screen. We'll be following the blue boxes. So for OUC, there is a system called Project Docs. So that's the submitting system that we upload our plan sets to. So we have that initial OUC submittal. These plan sets are then reviewed by the roughly 29 agencies that are participants in this review process. And they're looking for things to ensure, they're looking for things such as ensuring that our separation requirements are being met from our proposed facilities and their existing facilities. And then this is also the point in time where construction, restoration, and timing coordination can progress as well. So during this process, coordination, collaboration with third-party agencies and their reviewers are occurring. Oftentimes there are comments that are provided. We are updating our plan sets and going back and forth through different communications, email, phone calls, and the actual project doc system. We then update our plan sets, re-upload them up to project docs, and if everything goes smoothly, we finish out kind of that blue boxed process, and we obtain OUC approval. However, there are times where the review process goes through an extended detour where additional review cycles and communication and collaboration are required in order to receive approval. And this is really kind of that kind of the brown box. This is depicted or represented by the brown boxes in the lower left-hand corner, where it's kind of a cyclical process. We're working with a third-party agency. There may be extensive comments or denials that we have to work through with them. And ultimately, we kind of hop back into those blue boxes to receive approval. And you can see in the bar chart to the right, there are times where the review process goes through an extended detour where additional review cycles and communication collaboration are required. And in 2020 and 2021, we saw a number of extended detours as our average OUC duration was well over 100 days. However, we have and will continue to work with CDOT and those other key stakeholders, those other 29 agencies, on innovative ways to reduce this overall review time, as it really is a critical step in the success of PRP. So with that, I think, Annie, you will take it over from here.
Thank you, Eric. Before we move on to Annie, I do want to pause to acknowledge we did get a question in the chat. Thank you so much. And the question really is about the MPA independent contractor that Peoples Gas is in RFP status for. And I know that Eric mentioned that. So Eric, maybe if you can be on standby here, but basically the question is, can we get an update on the RFP status and then talk about any planning, analysis, or MPA proposals Peoples Gas has prepared in the meantime? So as I know, the RFP is in process. We hope to have that awarded this month as our schedule had been on track for that, and to hopefully get somebody on board either before the end of the year or right after the holiday. I know we've been doing, I'm going to ask Eric or John from engineering to add to this, but I also know we've been meeting with other utilities to understand more about some of their MPA programs, to understand and learn more from our perspective. But excuse me, Eric, anything you want to add to that, or John?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eric, and I'll add some commentary after you.
Okay. Yes, Paul, you're correct. We have been meeting with other utilities throughout the country to kind of get some additional information and process and steps that they have taken and kind of in their creation of MPA. So it's been pretty insightful. We've had a handful of those, and we have some scheduled for the remainder of the year as well. But we will look to utilize that information as well outside of the workshops that we are currently in progress with. John, I think you want to mention something as well.
Yeah, just in line with that the information that we're gathering from the workshops, we're still going to utilize. It's not without having a contractor on right now doesn't mean we don't take those proposals as a good start. So with the work that we're doing with other utilities that have MPAs, programs that they've used, either successfully or unsuccessfully, just gathering a lot of that information so we're well prepared once we onboard this consultant to really hit the ground running.
Thanks, John. And then we also had a question pre-submitted about MPAs as well. And I think the only part that maybe we haven't covered is are MPAs a part of the capital planning for PRP and the expected timeline for those considerations? And I would just say, yes, MPAs would be a part of the capital planning portion once we implement that model and engineering model. And we do, as we've talked about timeline, we want to get this consultant on board by end of the year, early next year. And we think we'll have a model that we can utilize sometime in middle of 2026 that we can start to utilize as we're looking at projects in the out years. So that's kind of the timeline on it. Obviously, the work that we start in 2026 won't have that MPA analysis before. A lot of it gets started, but we are looking at implementing it in 2026 for work in the future. Okay. So thank you, John, Eric, and Annie. Now we will turn it over to you to talk about permits, and Tom for engaging in customers.
Thanks, Polly. Good evening, everyone. As Eric just alluded to a few moments ago, in terms of once PGL receives the approved projects, then we're truly ready for execution phase. So I'm just going to take a few moments to walk you through the review process that Peoples Gas takes in obtaining construction permits for our PRP projects, from request to activating of these permits. So the very first step, once the full packages of the project approvals are given to our construction team out in the field, our construction project managers goes through this package and ensures that they have the appropriate ranges for the permit, and then they request them through our internal Peoples Gas permit system. Once the requests are routed to another team, which is the permitting team within Peoples Gas for review. So then that takes us to the second step of the review process, where we do have dedicated resources that thoroughly review these permit ranges for accuracy and ensuring that the process is seamless and we are requesting these permits in a timely manner. Right after that, the very great thing about the permitting system is that Peoples Gas internal permit system is actually integrated with CDOT Hansen permitting system. So these permit requests are routed and processed in real time. So it's an integration between the two systems. And so as we are putting in the request, CDOT is seeing them and able to review accordingly, which brings me to the fourth step, where once the applications are sent through the system, PGL system and CDOT system, Peoples Gas then looks at it and makes sure that everything is well done. And we have a great team that we work with very closely at CDOT, led by Brian Gallardo, and on a very great course where we are able to process these permits within a day or two. If there are no moratorium holds. But if there are any holds or anything that is identified that CDOT sees that we have to take a closer look, there is close coordination between Peoples Gas and CDOT's permitting team to ensure that we mitigate and we resolve any problems in a very timely manner. So with that, we are very grateful for working with and collaborating with CDOT's team on the permitting. And so I will hand it over to Tom Aritas to just elaborate more on all our efforts that we take in engaging with our customers. Tom?
Thank you, Annie. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Aritas. I'm the Vice President of Local Affairs and Community Relations. While not new to the company, I've worked with many of you for 17 years over in regulatory. I am new to the role of Local Affairs and Community Relations, and I can assure you that consistent, clear communications and updates on this project to the communities we serve is a top priority for me and my staff. Having said that, I want to walk you through how we intend to engage our customers, not only at the project's outset this coming year, but throughout the pendency of the project. So, as you can see here in this slide, Peoples Gas has created a multi-phased communication process where we will communicate with the customer at a minimum no less than 6 times. This process is built around the sequencing of the work, meaning each fall we send out field workers to survey and mark the areas where we will be doing work in the following spring and summer construction season. So step 1 is aldermanic outreach. It starts with the aldermanic offices in the wards we intend on doing work. So we contact the aldermanic office, we request an in-person meeting be scheduled with the alderman and their chief of staff and their staffs. The responsible project manager for that work, along with an assigned government relations representative, brief the alderperson and their staff on the specific nature of the work that we're going to be doing in the ward. We also leave behind at that meeting, a sample customer communication packet, along with a detailed ward map depicting the specific streets and blocks that will be impacted the following spring and summer during the construction season. After that aldermanic outreach takes place, and approximately 1 week before our field surveyors are sent out to the impacted areas, we send an initial letter and an email to each customer before the field service markings begin. The letter and the email both contain an overview of the entire construction process, a brochure with specific step-by-step details of the work impacting their home, notification that someone representing the gas company will be coming to their door to mark the service, and also dedicated phone numbers and emails for the customer to find out more information or pose any additional questions they may have directly to us. 1 week after those touch points are made, the field surveyors canvass the impacted area and go door to door to reiterate the information of the customer face to face, and to request access to the customer's home or basement to find out where the service comes into the home. If the customers are not home, we leave a door hanger with this information, along with a request to contact us for a follow-up. Fast forwarding to the following spring, before the construction work is actually ready to begin, a second letter is sent to the customers, and then 1 week later, we do another face-to-face communication with the customer at their premises before the construction starts to address any questions or concerns they may have. We can go on to the next slide, please. So in addition to that very proactive approach, we also have additional forms of communication that the customers can avail themselves of. We have the PGL PRP website. You see the website address right here on the slide. Here, customers can go and find out when we start each project, when we finish with each phase of the project, find out who the contractor is on the job, and this information is updated every 2 weeks. We also do continuous cooperation and coordination with the aldermanic office after the project starts throughout the year. If something changes regarding the information we've conveyed or with the work, we ask the aldermen to put the pertinent information and changes in their ward newsletters or ward websites as updates are needed. We will look to do that again, of course, this year and with the PRP. Similarly, we also cooperate with community groups on communications as well. In the past, we've worked with community groups in the ward that touch customers in different ways to get any pertinent information regarding changes to the work or changes to the information we've already conveyed to the customers. So that kind of concludes my overview of how we touch the customer regarding PRP. So,
hey, Tom, Tom, if we could go back one slide, one of the pre-submitted questions we had was around updates for the program as it relates by ward or major intersection. I know that we've got this interactive construction map on the website that folks can go to. Anybody can utilize at any time, and I believe you can even, zoom out further so you can see where we've completed in certain sections of the city. But would you like to add anything to that question? I know we probably don't have it by intersection, but I do believe by ward we pretty much on this map. But do we have anything else you would like to add to that?
Well, in our initial meeting with the aldermen, we have very detailed ward maps that hone in street by street, block by block, that indicate where the work is, the type of work, and we talk through that with the aldermen and their staffs. So we get as detailed as we can, both with the customers on this interactive map and the aldermanic office.
Thank you. And then I just also, for any kind of updates, I just would turn people to this peoplesgasdelivery.com/pipe retirement program, because there are multiple, not just this construction map, but there's a lot of information that we update, and we will continue to update this website and keep that live for updated information as it relates to not only construction, but community involvement, things like that. So I do want to encourage everybody to bookmark that as a great place, as a resource to go and get information. And then obviously if there are further questions, we can try to answer those. And then before we do break for take a break for 5 minutes, we did have a follow-up question, Eric Stahl. We had a follow-up question about the MPAs. Will the inclusion of MPAs for PRP be implemented in the phase 1 2026 through 2028 work? And I'm not sure the terminology of phase 1 being multiple years worth of work, but it's my understanding, but please correct me, that the MPAs, because we're getting the model mid-year and we'll be implementing it mid-year in 2026, it really will be not able to be used until before 2027 work. But please confirm or clarify.
Yeah, that's correct, Polly. So the MPAs, due to the length and process that I described for really the creation and design of projects, MPAs will be incorporated for any work starting construction really 2027 and beyond. So yes, that's accurate how you described it.
Okay. So hopefully that answers that follow-up question. So with that, Kelly, if we can move to the next slide, we will take a quick 5-minute break. It is 4:57 right now. So we'll take 5 minutes and come back at 5:02. Thank you. Okay, everyone, that was 5 minutes. So we will resume our session. And as we are going to resume, we will be moving into the execution phase of construction. And Jerry Dixon will take us into this portion of the life cycle. Jerry?
Yeah, thank you, Polly. And good evening, everyone. I'm excited to be here with you today. My name is Jerry Dixon. I'm the Director of Construction and the PRP Program Manager for Peoples Gas. This evening, I'll be walking you through our execution portion of our presentation. So as Eric Stahl mentioned in his previous slides, engineering will be completing analysis, feasibility, and cost-benefit studies of non-pipeline alternatives instead of replacement. If those non-pipeline alternatives are determined to not be feasible, engineering will then also evaluate other alternative designs, approaches that will determine our construction installation methods to retire this aging, leak-prone material. If it is determined that the most prudent manner to retire a segment of cast iron or ductile iron main is to install new gas main, the diagram that is currently displayed outlines the process that will maintain natural gas delivery to our customers while we perform construction activities. Once engineering has completed their design and we get permitting approvals from the City of Chicago, previously outlined by Annie, we will begin construction to retire our cast iron or ductile iron main. The represented illustration outlines a 6-step process that will occur in order to retire the aging cast iron ductile iron main depicted as the red line in the street on the diagram. The construction sequence will maintain gas service to our customers' appliances that heats their homes, dries their clothes, warms their water, and powers their stoves, all while we perform construction activities outside. Let's start with the first step. The first step is to determine your energy demand. A technician will calculate this based on your existing natural gas appliances that are in your home or business. We will also locate where the future gas regulator will be installed on the exterior of your home or business. A representative of Peoples Gas will need to enter your home and basement to perform this step. Jumping to step 2, we are going to camera the sewer lines in the street and the sewer lateral that runs from the street to your home. This will allow us to ensure that the lines are clear of any obstructions and allow us to gather the depths of the sewer lines, and to also confirm that we can run a camera through these lines after the natural gas main has been installed to ensure that we haven't damaged anything. If we find roots within these lines, we will typically be able to jet them out to perform the camera inspections needed. Jumping to the third step is actually to start construction. We typically work in 2 blocks increments, and we will typically be working in the sidewalks, parkways, and parking lanes. We will be installing new main, installing new services if necessary, and installing safety devices such as excess flow valves and regulators that are currently not installed on our low pressure system. Jumping to step 4, this is to transfer the customer service to our newly installed gas main. We will be installing a regulator that will be installed outside of your home or business, and we'll be connecting that regulator to your existing gas meter. We will test for leaks and relight your appliances. This is another step where we will need to access your home and basement to perform this step. Step 5 is we will be retiring the cast and ductile iron that is typically in the street. We're going to segment this main and also ensure that it's completely purged of all gas once all customers have been transferred off of the old main and onto the new main. And the 6th, last and final step is to restore your property, sidewalks, parkways, and the streets to as found or better conditions. Next slide, please. All right. So it was crystal clear in the final order that we received in February of this year that we need to execute differently. Not only were we directed to retire all cast iron and ductile iron pipe less than 36 inches by 2035, but we also need to perform alternative design analysis that Eric previously mentioned. This analysis could change what my team constructs, and of course, we're laser focused on retiring the 1,020 miles of cast iron ductile iron main by 2035. To help with this, we improved our team makeup, and we are currently working to staff 4 PRP delivery teams whose sole responsibility will be focused on the retirement of CI/DI main across the city of Chicago. The diagram on the right of the screen is an example of one of our delivery teams. Each team will be led by a senior project manager that will be supported by project managers and contract analysts outlined in the light blue. The project managers in the medium color blue will be assigned a piping system that Eric mentioned previously. And we'll have a team that will consist of cost analysts, schedulers, project engineers, and construction managers to deliver this retirement. The field execution in the dark blue will report to the project manager, establishing a cohesive team solely focused on retirement of CI/DI main. Jump to the next slide. All right, next I'm going to talk about as-built, material traceability, and closeout. This is the process of documenting our facilities' exact locations as installed, documenting the materials used and the testing performed in the field. All of what you see are mandatory requirements of ours to ensure that we're complying with federal and state safety standards. Let's start at the top with material testing reports. These are quality assurance documents known as mill test reports, or MTRs, and these certify the material chemistry and physical properties, conforming it meets specifications and our standards. The next item down, GPS collection. High accurate GPS is used to precisely map the locations of our underground assets, also valves, fittings, meters, down to the centimeter accuracy level. The next item down, you see that circular chart. That is a pressure recording chart. These are instruments that are continuously monitoring and recording our pressures over time to ensure that they meet our specification standards before we gas them. And then field records. These are all of our written documentation, written notes, all of our any documentation that comes with our materials that we order. And all of this will be uploaded into our ArcGIS Pro, which is our digital asset record. Some of the benefits that we see from this are improved safety. It's going to allow for faster, more accurate maintenance response to emergencies, and then providing precise locations of underground pipes and our components. Next slide. All right. Attached, these are pictures of our high accuracy GPS points that we capture in the field of our facility and store in our ArcGIS digital asset record. The top 2 photos that you see, those are pictures of our yellow medium density polyethylene pipe, and the red dots symbolize the GPS points taken. The 2 pictures below, those are photos of our green epoxy coated steel piping, and those red dots symbolize the GPS points taken. This is, again, all uploaded, so we have exact locations of where our pipes are for locating purposes and also responding for emergencies. This concludes my portion of the presentation, and I'd like to turn it over to our next panelist, Peggy Salvatore.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Peggy Salvatore. I'm the Director of Work Management and Project Controls. And I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to be here with you all to share information and updates about PRP. So grateful for the forum today and moving forward. With that, I'm first going to, on this slide, touch on 2 topics. One is really thinking about all the information that we've shared and heard about PRP. When I take it all in, it reminds me of the complexities of the work that we're doing. So just going back to what Eric Stahl described with the piping systems and the forward trace and everything we need to do to analyze the system in order to provide that in order to ensure that the services that we're providing to our customers are seamless and uninterrupted as we're going through these. So that's one example. I know Eric Stahl mentioned too how we go out in the field for the line of lay walks to make sure that we're we're physically observing the areas that we're going to be doing the installation in. Jerry talked about the SOAR cameraing, and just thinking about what we're doing there in order to ensure damage or minimize potential damages, so ensuring that damage prevention. So I guess all of that just brings to mind the complexities of the work that we're doing, which then leads us to the necessity of having controls, right? So that's really what this slide is getting at from the individual projects and then the overall program. You've seen this visual throughout the presentation, throughout everyone that's spoken here this evening. Really here, what I'm highlighting is those red, yellow, green. And I know Polly touched at this at the beginning, but these red, yellow, green, these stoplights represent a gate review. So this is a new process that we're implementing for PRP to formalize gate reviews. So you can see at the different points of a project life cycle, we'll pause and assess the readiness of the project to move forward through the life cycle. Then here, that gate review process is one component of a suite of processes that support project control. So you can see here a number of Eric Wagner, we heard from him earlier on the estimating and how we're connecting that with the industry standards. We heard a little bit about planning as well. So this suite of project controls processes all work together in order to provide kind of what's at the center, that transparency, consistency, and accountability in order to make sure that we're executing the projects effectively. And then on this last slide that I'll cover here is just drilling into one of those processes is the reporting and KPIs. So this is an area that our project teams have been working on, is developing reports and drafting KPIs that we'll use to monitor progress and cover the variety of topics here that we know we need to cover. I know Polly will touch on the status of the safety monitor coming up, and that's something that we're looking forward to get them on board. So we'll continue to work with them on the KPIs. And then I look forward to meeting with you all more in the future, in future forums, in order to share results and progress on how the work is progressing and utilizing our KPIs to do that. With that, I will go ahead and turn it back over to Polly.
Thank you, Peggy. So now we've talked a lot about the program life cycle, and so now we'll talk a little bit about how we deliver and manage it. And I'll ask Danielle to also join me to talk about supplier diversity. So jumping into our governance model here, you can see we put together this governance and delivery model, and it's really designed to provide focused and timely governance, oversight, and support of the critical office and field activities that are required for the PIPE retirement program. It is a 3-level hierarchy, including the highest levels of our leadership in our company at the Executive Steering Committee. And you can see they're in the blue at the very top. You've got the PRP program executive that's intentionally a member of the executive steering committee, but also part of the program management office. And this is to make sure that real-time feedback, real-time communications, real-time accountability is constantly going between the 2 levels. You can also see that the PRP program executive has a direct line to the ICC safety monitor. As Peggy said, we're waiting to have the safety monitor join us, but when they do, we wanted to make sure that they have a direct line into a channel to give feedback, not only to executive leadership, but also to the leadership of the program, so that it can have a real-time feedback, real-time resolution, real-time digestion of that feedback, so that we can make determinations on what, if any, actions are necessary. In that second level, you can see the second level there in the middle with green. That's the program management office, and that really starts the program delivery team. Each of those boxes in the green represent a lead that really has a function and teams that will help deliver that next level, which is the delivery team. So in the green, we have a strategic planning lead. That's Eric Wagner. You met him on the call today. We have a regulatory compliance lead. We have a program manager. That is Jerry Dixon. We have a resource management lead. We have a reporting and communication lead. And then we also have this continued improvement and change management lead. Again, all about that learning, the continuous learning and feedback process. Below the program management office, again, because those are the leads, we have our delivery teams. On the left there, you can see the PRP development and planning team in the purple. That is led by Eric Stahl, and he's on the call tonight. And really, that is the heart and a lot of the heart of the whole process, right? The heart of the life cycle here. This upfront investment in this long-term development and planning really sets up the program for success when it gets to execution or it gets into the delivery portion. And so that's why we've spent a lot of time talking about that today and how much we have enhanced that process and function. Well, if you look over to the gray in the middle, that's the program delivery, the project delivery teams. And really that's the teams that are going to be very close to the pipe and the work happening in the field. So those are the people that are managing the actual construction, the retirement, managing, talking with the customers. So it's really the in the field process, and then the as built-in and the closeout process. And then lastly, on the right, you'll see we have a PRP matrix support. That really is support from our various shared service organization throughout WEC. These folks are not full-time dedicated to the program, but we still need off and on support. So that could be anywhere from anybody from an HR representative to help us recruit and workforce plan, or it could be somebody from finance. It could be legal services to help us with a contract here or there. So that really is more of less of a full-time role, but we certainly need support from our shared services, and that's that portion of the program delivery model. When we think about the safety monitor, the future of S&P order created this role, and we have heard from the ICC and been working very closely with the ICC that Kiefner and Associates were selected. We've worked on an MOU, and so we are in the midst of the ICC is in the midst of onboarding the safety monitor, and then he or she will join our team. And they really have the role of reviewing the company's PRP program, assessing a variety of topics, including program costs, timelines, construction, retirement progress, and metrics for the program. They will receive and provide PRP progress reporting to the commission based on the company's reports, our program data, best practices that they bring to the table, and then the safety monitor's own technical input. So we really are looking forward to getting the safety monitor on board so that we can start to share a lot of the information we're sharing with you tonight and today with them to get that feedback and make any modifications that they see necessary. And we really see this as an opportunity to be completely transparent and open, and that's why we want that real-time feedback cycle. If we move to the next slide, thank you. So here's the PRP program delivery team, and we're really bringing together the program execution, so the governance and delivery model here, with the PRP way, the project life cycle, and the stage gates. And this is one cohesive view of how the PRP will achieve its mission to meet the ICC's order to retire the 1,020 miles of main, or CIDI, less than 36 inches by 2035. So again, the life cycle layout, and you can see above it the program management office. It's really that governance, and then below it are the delivery teams. Whether it's on the left there, the development and program planning, the project delivery teams, and then that matrix support that really helps support all of us and all of the different functions and all of the different steps in the process. One of the other changes we've been seeing is that we've also talked about not just dedicated workforce for the PRP, but also a dedicated labor force. And that really looks at our contracting with vendors a little bit differently. So we've really talked about changing our model to the strategic alliance contracting approach, and really putting in place a different strategy that helps us to support consistent, stable, and cost-effective delivery of the program. Strategic alliances really change the dynamics of the contractual relationship, ensuring more collaborative environment to plan and execute the work, as well as an appropriate assignment of risk. So by us taking dedicated geographies to allow the contractor to earlier plan and know what work they're going to have, this will help them have an increased focus, planning, and integrated planning with our teams, so that we have more efficient program management and projects across the board. The long-term commercial commitment will promote stability in the contractor's workforce planning and operations, which in effect should produce cost savings. And then separating fixed costs from the unit rates will encourage contractor investment in training and infrastructure, increasing price transparency, and reducing risk in pricing, and decreases change orders, and really improves our capital efficiency. So when you look at it, leveraging this partnership really helps us leverage the contractor's own capabilities and infrastructures as it relates to material management, and also planning the work together. And then we'll have those integrated delivery teams, which will help improve our performance and drive out inefficiencies. And then again, looking for efficient processes and effective program planning. Where are we in the process of this strategic alliance? So currently right now, because it is a change, it will not be in effect for 2026 work, but it will be in effect for any work that starts in 2027 and beyond. So when we look at this, we announced this intent to look at this type of strategy back in October 2025. We generated a pool of potential contractors. There were about 20 that we included into that notification. 12 responded that they're interested in being part of the RFI presentation. We did have 12 presentations. And then we have used and leveraged a lot of that feedback to help us understand how to create a efficient and effective and feasible RFP that we plan to go out in January. So as you can see, we are going to, in December where we're going to generate an RFP list. So we've gotten it down from the 12, we'll get it down to 6 to 8 best qualified contractors to participate in the RFP. And then the actual RFP will be released in January. And then over the next few months, we will spend the time doing site visits, digging deeper into the capabilities of the actual vendors to really get it honed down to about 4 different alliance contractors that will sign an award around June of next year. So that'll be in June. That gives them about 6 months to gear up and be ready to hit the ground running in January 2027. So now I'm going to ask Danielle, can you talk to us about supplier diversity as still a core value for us?
Hi, Polly. Thank you. I'm happy to share more about our supplier diversity program. So since 2015, we have spent over $1 billion with diverse suppliers. Our goal is to build meaningful and inclusive relationships while creating truly a positive economic impact through job creation in the communities that we serve. So the PIPE Retirement Program is going to allow us to create Tier 1 direct contractual relationships and Tier 2 subcontracting opportunities for both local and diverse suppliers to participate. We'll also continue to focus on local and Illinois-based suppliers. So in 2024, we did 62% of our diverse spend with businesses that are headquartered in the state of Illinois. And lastly, but not listed on the slide, is we will continue our work with advocacy organizations to support our supplier diversity efforts. And specifically, we would like to note the Illinois Utilities Business Diversity Council, the IUBDC. Our president, Maria Bocanegra, will chair the council starting in 2026. And under her leadership, we really look forward to furthering their mission. I'll turn it back to you, Polly.
Thank you, Danielle. And I am going to take a second to pause before we go into the ramp up plan and stakeholder engagement with Tom. I know there are a couple of questions in the chat, so I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge those. Looks like the first one is around acknowledging that PRP, the PRP, and how does it account for a cleaner energy future, I believe is basically the question there. And I think that, you know, again, the direction from the commission is to retire the aging pipes, right? And so we're looking at how we can do that by the timeline of 2035. But don't forget, as Maria talked when we first started, you know, by retiring these pipes and getting the cast and ductile iron out of the system, number one, it reduces emissions on its own by itself. Number two, it also it moves our system and our facilities into a more modern facilities, more modern pipes, and the ability to pivot to cleaner technologies, whether that's RNG or hydrogen blends. I mean, we already have an RNG going today. We've tested hydrogen blends. So the quicker we get better pipe and better materials into the system, the more those pilots and those technologies are a reality for us. Plus, you know, there's a lot of technologies that are still coming onto the market, and this newer pipe in the newer facility will help us to pivot more seamlessly into the future of whatever those technologies may be that we don't even know yet. So hopefully that helps to answer the question of how PRP really plays into meeting the climate goals of the city and also the state. It really is a big piece of it by reducing its emissions on its own and then being able to pivot into the future for those decarbonized technologies. The second question I see there, are what are your short-term and medium-term milestones for the pipes to be retired to achieve? You know, that's a really good question. We're still working through, again, our entire comprehensive plan for the program. But for 2026, we know that we are currently, again, because it's gearing up, it's 35 miles of retirement. Now, remember, retirement is the very last step in this entire life cycle process. So there's a lot of work that has to happen before we can get to that retirement. So I know some people have, you know, wondered why it's just 35, because we actually are not doing any construction or much construction right now. So to get up and going and then to get to that last step takes a little bit of time. So 35 would be for 2026, that's our plan. And 2027 obviously goes up from there. I hate to quote a number but it'll be closer to that 100 plus number as we get closer to our stable operations. And then the last question, what are the incentives? It's around incentives for meeting the KPIs and failing to meet the KPIs. You know, I'm going to ask our regulatory team if there's anything you want to add here. I don't believe the order set forth any incentives. There are penalties if we do not retire all the pipe by 2035. And I think it is quoted in the order, some sort of daily penalty they can assess. But Ted or Kobe, anything you would like to add to that?
No, that's accurate. Basically, it would be there's a general provision for failing to comply with a commission order. And you're right, I don't have off the top of my head the exact per day violation amount that could be imposed, but there was right, you're correct. There was no incentive to do the work. There was an order to mandate to get it done by 1/1 of 2035, with the threat of potential penalty for failing to meet that order. I can look up the exact daily amounts as we're sitting here. I don't, Kobe, unless you have them handy.
Yeah, Natalie, there's the particular section in the PUA escapes me, but there is a section in the Public Utility Acts regarding fines. But I'd have to go and look and see what the per day max is. Per day max and total incident maximum. But it is in the PUA.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. And then the follow-up, you guys are keeping me busy here with my questions. And then the follow-up on the reduction in emissions. Do we have any analysis or able to quantify the emission reductions with the work that we're doing? So we do work with our environmental team, and there is a formula that I believe that was created by the EPA that we utilize to calculate our emission reduction. Separately from that, and we can create that, we do track methane emissions with our with the EPA EPA methane challenge program. And we do participate in that, and we've shown how many emissions we have abated over the program period. And then lastly, we also have the RNG, which is part of our commodity offering right now. So RNG is carbon negative, so that also is good to help offset our emissions. And then lastly, when we were in the program, the planned infrastructure program, we would drive the area before we would start the project or start the construction, and we would have a knowledge of the leaks and what that looks. After we do a project, we typically will drive that section again, and many of you may have seen it. We've shown this publicly, the heat maps of leaks prior to the program and the legacy program SMP, and then the heat map after we've been through a program, and it is 95-98% reduction in leaks after we've been there. And I see the question, could you please share those reports and resources where I can read the results? I think you're asking about the reports and resources that I just were talking about. And if so, yes, we can send those out after the session, because I know that we've shared those before.
And Polly, I'll just note from the previous question, I found the language from the ICC's final order in docket 24-0081, also referred to as the SMP investigation docket. So the section of the Public Utilities Act is 5-202. So I put the copied and pasted the language into the group chat for this the WebEx.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. Anything else anybody would like to add to that? Let me ask before we move on. I would like to ask my team, we turn in the EPA report, is that annual? I know the methane challenge, I believe, ended a couple years ago with the change in administration, but John, is there anything you'd like to add to what we actually still submit today? Because we can release what we've had in the past. We are still internally calculating ourselves what we are reducing. And then, like I said, we've got those heat maps. John, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so we still are compliant with the EPA's reporting with subpart W, I believe. And so we report greenhouse gas emissions, methane being part of that with the conversion factor that the EPA gives us, and then record on our distribution system, our transmission system, and our storage facilities. And actually, we do that for utility and across WEEC.
Okay, perfect. We will send that out to the participants. All right. Now we will continue. We will move on into what does the ramp up plan look like for 2026 and then beyond. And then we'll also talk about stakeholder engagement. So as we look at this next slide, we really have to look at phasing, ramping up in two phases, right? It has to be a two-pronged approach because 2026, is the year of transition for this program, but we still needed to get work up and going as quickly as possible while we are refining and implementing the newly established program that we just talked about, whether it's the new probabilistic risk ranking model of JANA, whether it's the gas system based prioritization of projects and how we finalize and onboard our alliance contractors. So still a lot of work ahead of us. So when we think about it, we talk about it in two different phases. Work is starting in 2026. This will be leveraging, this is, what we are calling, again, the transition year or phase one. So we're really leveraging work that can be quickly started, leveraging previously engineered and designed work that have been through Office of Underground Coordination for approval in the past. These may require dusting off and reapproval, but they've already been through there and they can get started in 2026. So that will be phase one. And then simultaneously, as we're working through this implementation of the system-based model, which is all going to be coming on board early in 2026, in time to plan for any work that's beginning in 2027 and beyond. So you can see here, there's a lot of work that's been that will continue to happen in each of the different years or in stabilization. Once we get into phase two and we start using that system-based model, we will start to also go into that continuous implementation of improvement and continually implement through there as we go through retirement. So you can see here, there's a lot of activities, as you've heard today, a lot of change and work that's been happening from the team. And so we recognize there's a lot of this change and we recognize the need for communication. Hence, one of the avenues is this forum, but also Tom has, as he talked about a little bit earlier, has really been spending a lot of time thinking about all the different stakeholders and how do we keep them up to speed and make sure that they understand what we're doing. So Tom, I'll let you talk about really your stakeholder activities to date.
Thank you, Polly. We can have the best laid plans, but if folks are not aware of them or understand them, the entire exercise loses its purpose. So as I mentioned before, we intend to make consistent, clear communications our top priority, and our approach with all stakeholders will be no different than the one taken with our customers. I just want to briefly walk you through some examples of how we have and will continue to engage our stakeholders on this project going forward. So it all begins with our regulator, of course, the Illinois Commerce Commission. We've been in frequent communications with the ICC staff and the commissioners about our plans since the issuance of the PRP order last February. A safety monitor will be put in place soon. We're going to work closely with them over a 2-year period prior to the issuance of a very detailed progress report to the ICC at the end of 2027 by said safety monitor. We, of course, are in the middle of the NPA workshops, which many of you are familiar with. A total of 9 workshops have been scheduled through the end of December, including 3 with various community organizations. Biannual forums, this is 2 of 2 that we've already conducted this year, and there'll be 2 each year for the entire life cycle of the project going forward. So that's all under the auspice of the ICC, the City of Chicago, another crucial stakeholder for us in successful execution of this project. In addition to the aldermanic outreach to the offices and the wards impacted that I discussed earlier, our president, Maria Bocanegra, appeared before the City Council last May to begin this conversation that we're having here today on the details of PRP and our initial planning approach. We've had several meetings with the Mayor's Environmental Sustainability Policy Team, Commissioner Angela Tovar, our Deputy Commissioner Jared Polchicchio, who I believe is on this call. And we will continue to have more of those conversations going forward. As we've done in the past, we intend to work even more closely with the Department of Water Management and the Chicago Department of Transportation. As far as the water department, city water department, we've had multiple discussions with Commissioner and his staff, and we're currently exploring a possible joint pilot. As many of you know, the water department's in the process of their own lead pipe replacement program. So we're exploring the possibility of doing a pilot in a specific area of the city so we can obtain learnings and what efficiencies we can gain going forward. Same with the Chicago Department of Transportation. I've had several discussions with Deputy Commissioner Khalil, and we have a standing monthly meeting, but also we intend on working closely together on a memorandum of understanding going forward on how we interact with CDOT as in our PRP work. Our consumer groups, of course, another crucial stakeholder, Citizens Utility Board, Illinois Attorney General's Office, Environmental Law and Policy Center, Public Interest Research Group. We've had at least 2 summits so far this year with all those groups. And one of them, our parent company CEO attended, and we intend on having many more conversations with you as we go on here. Our labor partners, both internal and external, are crucial to the success of the project. We value our partnership with all of them. We recently signed a major project labor agreement regarding PRP, and we look forward to working with all our labor partners going forward on the project. Our employees themselves, who come from every corner of the city, are great ambassadors for us in their respective communities. We've held several informational internal town hall meetings with them over the past few months, and we will continue to do so, of course, throughout the pendency of the project. And last but not least, our vendor partners play not only a significant role in the execution of the project itself, but in assisting us with inclusive contracting engagements and, of course, meeting our supplier diversity goals. So as we bring this discussion to a close, I want to reiterate a simple but essential truth. This project will succeed not just because of engineering, planning, or innovation, but because of the strength of our relationships. And we are committed to building those relationships through communication and coordination that is thoughtful, consistent, and grounded in partnership. That is our priority, and that is our promise to you as we move forward together. I'd like to turn it back over to Polly. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. So with that, that concludes the prepared portion of our session today. Really appreciate the folks that have joined us today. Really appreciate all the questions that we've received. So be sure if there's still time, if you have questions, put it in the chat. I did receive one other pre-submitted question that we haven't addressed already, which was really asking about how much we are spending on PRP. For 2026, the budget is approximately about 215 million. Again, that is to get up and going. And we have not finalized the budgets for the years out, but we are in the process, as we talked about earlier, putting together that comprehensive strategic program plan and the annual plan, which will set a budget baseline as we move forward. So I just wanted to address that while we had a moment. Any other questions for our panelists? Okay. Oop. I'm sorry. There's a question I didn't address. Let me see if I can find it. Any chance you could recopy it back in? I apologize. Let's give 1 minute, unless anybody on my team knows which one is missed. Thought I went through here. Is there a plan to factor in clean energy goals in European health? So yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I did address clean energy goals and how that is part of PRP's overall benefits as we move forward. I think it's difficult to talk about the stranded assets when we don't know at this point that things would be stranded, right? We talk about how these facilities would pivot into the future. And so that would be part of utilization in the future. And we see that as part of the solution as we move forward in a decarbonized environment. And also when we think about leveraging those technologies, the new facilities will allow for more RNG. It'll allow for that hydrogen blend, which is a 1-for-1, decarbonization. So if you do a 20% blend, it's a 20% decarbonization effort or effect at that point. And then we also have, on the appliances, a lot of technology coming on that makes sure that the appliances are more efficient than they've ever been. The gas heat pump technology we just rolled out this year. And so we really see that our facilities and the pipes are going to be needed into the future, well into it, to help make sure that we've got the safest, most reliable, most cost-effective way to heat homes in Chicago. So another follow-up question on if there will be an active and measured analysis effort to maximize emission reduction with specific stated targets. So again, I'm going to ask the regulatory team to just confirm with me. There's nothing that is in the order stating that I'm aware of stating those goals. And again, we're putting our own calculations on the reduction to show how much we are abating by doing the program. But Ted or Kobe, anything you would like to add to that? We do not have a formal goal that I'm aware of.
Yeah, from the order, there's no such direction that I so I mean.
I think it's something that, again, as we're working with our safety monitor, as we're working with our stakeholders, this group, the commission, if there's something to report formally, we certainly can look into that as well. Okay, well, thank you again so much. While we are before we move into closing remarks, just remember, we've got the PRP website, as you can see here. This presentation, the recorded version of the presentation will be on YouTube. And you also can email us workshop@peoplesgasdelivery.com. You can continue to send us questions there. We've got a couple of takeaways that we will follow up. I know tomorrow we will send an email out to the group to offer a survey and also offer any questions that you want to submit there. And then we also will follow up with a few of those requested documents. Do not apologize for your questions. We really appreciate it. It makes us feel valued for while we're here. I know it's sometimes we may not have all the answers in the moment, and sometimes we may have to come back with answers after doing some research, but really appreciate the engagement and the opportunity to have the conversation tonight. And again, I think as we opened the session, you know, all of this is in the vein of feedback and transparency and communication, and everything we hear and learn from these sessions or from our continued communication with our multiple stakeholders, we are taking into consideration how do we address that, or how can we do things differently, or how, if at all, do we need to address it. So thank you again. And with that, Maria, can you give us some closing remarks?
Yes, thank you so much. Well, thank you for a really great second biannual forum. So as we close out tonight's forum, I want to take a moment to reflect what really this gathering represents for us as a business as we engage with each of you. This isn't a meeting just about pipelines. It's about how we together are really trying to shape the future of energy here in Chicago. And it's about building a system that is safer, reliable, resilient, and more community minded than ever before. Throughout the discussion this evening, you have heard how we are grounding every decision that we make in safety, making sure that our work reduces risk, protects our workforce, and strengthens our reliability. You heard how we are driving responsibility and discipline by applying world-class planning, project controls, and openly to ensure that every dollar is spent wisely. And you also heard how we are leaning into community and partnerships, whether it's supporting jobs, investing in diverse suppliers, and coordinating closely with our customers, city agencies, and our labor partners. I do want to take a moment to especially thank again our labor partners for their craftsmanship, their professionalism that they bring to this essential work every day. We also deeply appreciate the ICC's ongoing guidance. Their direction and feedback has helped us reshape this program in very meaningful ways, and we are really committed to keeping that dialogue open and active. I do want to point out, just as we did during the first forum, for those of you that may have picked up on some of the language that our employees and our staff and team here has used, you heard words like enhanced or different or this is new for us, and that's because it is. I have witnessed firsthand this team work hour by hour, minute by minute, in really looking at every single detail that you see on each of those slides this evening. So I want to commend them. I also want to thank our stakeholders like ELPC, NRDC, PERG, CUB, and other advocates who have taken the time to meet with us this year on several occasions just to get feedback and to understand how we can improve not only how we present this information to you, but to make sure that we're really considering all of that feedback and helping to shape this agenda, the content, and trying to answer any questions that each of you may have. And I also want to thank those same stakeholders for helping to fill out the surveys that Polly just mentioned, and that we will be sending out. All of that is truly critical feedback as we work to shape the next iteration of our biannual forums next year. And this is our effort to be collaborative in that regard. I think what gives me real confidence coming out of this evening's meeting is that this program isn't static. It's really evolving. We're not only retiring aging infrastructure, we're building the foundation for what comes next. It's a system ready to safely deliver things like RNG, hydrogen blend fuels, and other clean energy innovations that will help define Chicago's energy future. So thank you again to our partners, regulators, community members, and of course our team members for the honesty, collaboration, and shared purpose that you have brought to this first set of forums. We will keep listening, and we will keep improving, and we want to keep working side by side to ensure that this program delivers lasting value for our customers, for our workers, and for the city that we are very proud to serve. So that concludes our second biennial forum. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful evening.